Let's have a heart to heart, fellas and ladies, and theys and thems. Culture war. Let's speak on that real quick. Now, when I usually use this term, I use the term culture, or like we're in some sort of cultural war. I'm referring to something that is taking place whether you want it to be there or not. I'm going to tell you what influenced kind of this segment here in a little bit. But I don't want to be too vague, but everybody belongs in some sort of subculture. Right now, what we've seen in recent years particularly is that because one side has basically taken control of what is deemed as the acceptable ideological position that you can have publicly in any given subculture, the authoritarian left pretty much has that control. If you don't believe me, just think about the fact that they can publicly take their authoritarian leftist positions and see virtually no consequence to anything it is that they do. Meanwhile, people that value liberty don't have any sort of culture that they can call their own aside from their little pockets, right? So whether it be with sports, whether it be with entertainment, so your movies, your music, or anything like that, hell, people on the opposite side they don't have it. They don't even have the church anymore, right? They don't even have that for the most part. NASCAR, you ain't even got that no more. Bubba Wallace proved exactly that. You don't have control of anything. There's no cultural imprint that you guys have. So what people are now seeing is that because that side has been so emboldened, because they're cocky enough to understand that they now control everything. So what they've done, like what they've done with Gina Carano, what they did with her, you know, they have no problem ostracizing. It's funny. People looked at Gatekeeper like it was a bad thing, and then they took it over. Now they gatekeeping y'all up out of there. So God forbid that you have a different position and exist among them in their subculture. I say this as a guy that exists in metalcore. Trust me, they'll come for you. But that war, rather that conflict, is existing whether you want it to exist or not. Now, I hate to keep referring back to this and what we've seen with recent movies that have come out, but it's just a prime example of that, where the authoritarian left controls the conversation, right? And they don't reciprocate, which is the important thing to note. I know folks think that they can have the luxury of turning their mind off, right? And just enjoying, like, I guess, some sort of entertainment, for example. In a world where, I guess, let's say a more freer world where, you know, liberty is valued and upheld, then yeah, you're going to get a lot more of that. People finding ways to entertain each other or whatever and not really worrying about all of this other dumb shit, definitely in the political sphere. You'd get more of that. Unfortunately, you don't have that luxury right now. They're on the attack. They have not stopped, and they don't plan on stopping. However, what they do require of you is your money, your funding, and whatnot. And they can always depend on that if they shine, if their keys are just shiny enough. And again, I hate to keep referring back to like No Way Home or something like that movie came out and some people are you're overemphasizing or over exaggerating. No, I'm not. What that does is speak exactly to what it is that I'm talking about, because it's not like the left reciprocates with you. Do they go in your affairs or something that you, for the most part, control as a person that values liberty and then want to consume your shit? No, they don't warrant you such reciprocity. So you can't afford to simply ignore that, because you're basically walking right into that lion's den, no matter if you liked it or not. And this is the reality that a lot of people must accept. It's there whether you want it to be or not. That's what it is. What I advocate and what I have been talking about for the better part of 10 years, and I talk about how politics, you know, this isn't my idea that's unique, but we talk about how culture is on the up, is basically, let's say, politics on the downstream, right? It's not generally the other way around. You change the culture, you change the politics by way of default. And for years and years, the non-leftists in America have seen things that were outside of, let's say, government per se, as things that were not that were not important. They were always trivial. Who gives a shit what rappers think? Who cares what the actors or actresses think? Who cares about any of that stuff? It's stupid. You still got these boomer cons who still make fun of people for playing video games. That's how out of just completely disconnected that they are, because it's pointless, right? You should be, I don't know, in the woods chopping trees or some shit. But they thought of all that stuff was as trivial instead of looking at the bigger picture. Like I've said, if we lived in a freer, like more prosperous nation, you'd have more of that. You wouldn't have less. You'd have more people caring about what subcultures they are into, not less. It is a powerful driver of the direction that a geographical area is going to go. The difference between the authoritarian left and everybody else is that the authoritarian left realized how important that it was. While y'all thought it was trivial, while y'all thought it was stupid, they went out there and they were like, we get control of this. We get control of future generations. We don't need the ideas on our side. We don't have to be the smartest people in the room. We don't have to do any of that. We just have to get control of these subcultures that so many people belong to and they care more about than, let's say, who their representative is, be it state or federally. You ask your average person, they have no idea. They know who the fuck Beyonce is, though. They can tell you what happened in the latest Marvel movie. They can do that. But the average person can't tell you shit about what's now. Again, some people look at that. Well, that's a bad. It doesn't matter how you feel about that. The reality is that there's a reason why those guys can go pimp out, let's say, those representatives, and whether you think they're the dumbest people on earth doesn't matter, because they are of influence and they do influence future generations. I would encourage you to go look at, for example, polls of like people that are like my generation and younger, where they're trending in terms of their voting habits, and it ain't fucking good. It ain't good at all. But there's a reason for that. It's because for years, folks that value liberty neglected all of that stuff that I was just mentioning in terms of those subcultures, right? So where you think that you could turn your mind off and just consume, you cannot afford to do that, and you have to be more mindful if the tide is going to change. That war is existing whether you want to be a part of it or not. Whether you think, oh, not everybody cares about, you don't have the, I get it that you might not, and you want to just turn your mind off, but that's not how they operate. And again, that would only make sense if they had some sort of reciprocity. They don't. You see what they try to do in the event that you come up with your alternatives, they delegitimize it. Oh, it's a demotion now that, let's say, there's a movie coming out by way of Gina Carano working with Daily Wire. That's a they want to delegitimize everything it is that you do, because they understand in the event that folks like ourselves wake up and just say, you know what? No. All right, I bet you got control of all of this shit that it is that we knew and love. I concede that we're going to start creating our own stuff, and we're going to be more mindful of putting money in your pockets instead of just mindlessly consuming some of you, the glitz and the glamour. And you put stuff in our faces. Now our eyes got little twinkles on it like in the cartoons or some shit. And then we just forget everything it is that you did to us and everything it is that you said you were going to do. But the important thing to note is there's no reciprocity there. The left does not afford you. The authoritarian left does not afford you such reciprocity. They don't care about that. They do not go to your products and consume your shit. They don't do that. You, and they depend on you, fund them. And this is why I had that 49% rule. And that is that just a little over half of your time, effort, attention going to stuff in that sector of folks that don't hate you. To folks that don't hate you. And creators getting in these spaces and being unapologetic about who it is that they are. But most importantly, packaging their stuff in a way that's competitive. Not just for the sake of doing it. Not just to say, hey, look at me, I'm an alternative. That's not good enough. That's not good enough. That's not good enough. Not good enough at all. It's not good enough. You have to be competitive and you have to be good. And that's what's necessary right now. So for those of you that look at anything that happens and you say, well, this time I'm going to give them a benefit of a doubt, which you've done so often. I'm going to continue to give them the benefit of the doubt, even though they done me wrong, even though they've made it abundantly clear that they fucking hate me. I'm going to continue to give them the benefit of the doubt. I'm sorry to say that is a dumbass approach, and this is going to ensure that you're going to fucking lose. Because again, they don't have any sort of reciprocity in that regard. They do not reciprocate. They fucking hate you, and they're bold enough because they control so much to tell you that they don't fucking like you. The only difference here is that you fund them, they don't fund you. So be more mindful is what it is that I ask. That's it. And this does not mean that I'm absolved of this. There's stuff that I can do better in this regards as well. You just watched a clip from my podcast, For Canon's Sake. Catch us live at 12 p.m. throughout the week over at youtube.com/YoungRipper59 and follow us over at odyssey.com/@YoungRipper59. If you want to watch the entire video cast after the show is over, just be sure to become a member on the YouTube channel. Of course, the full audio portion of the podcast is available for free on all major digital platforms, or just visit forcanonsake.com.